Welcome, I'm Rob. You join me at TeamSport Coventry. I'm here now for a practice race event for my BIKC regionals. This one is a Thursday night members event called Tin Tops. Nice, straightforward format. We get 10 minutes of qualifying, a 10-minute sprint race, and then a nice, long reverse grid race to make up our positions. Overtaking here is difficult. Qualifying is going to be key, and then I want to practice making up as many positions as I can. So of course we're under flag tests during the first qualifying. I actually was released out first. So before I start lap 2, you may remember that I have been to Coventry before, back in January. I think the videos came out February, March sort of time. And I walked away from 2 o'clock public sessions with a 43.1 fastest lap time. As I cross this line, my fastest lap will appear, and it will appear as a 42.465. The reason for that, I finished work in Sheffield at 4 o'clock. I drove straight down to Coventry, just stopping for some food. When I arrived at TeamSport, it was just gone 6 o'clock, and I'd managed to get myself booked on to the public session that ran at 6:35 before this event for a little bit of extra practice. I didn't record that visit or that session because I knew my battery wouldn't last for this entire event, and I would rather have recorded the event than those sessions. They were of course busy sessions, but I managed to improve in both sessions, so I was happy that it was worthwhile doing. So of course now, qualifying, I'd like to go a little bit quicker still. Ultimately, end of the night, I'd like to be mid 41s, as that is where I think the pace will be when it comes to the regionals. Obviously, we've already seen the regionals, and we know that I was unsuccessful and did not progress to the national finals. I say unsuccessful, I achieved my personal goal, which was to make it into the grand final. So of course, this track is slightly shorter than Sheffield, so our 10 minutes of qualifying looks like it's going to get us 3 laps in this case. As I say, I was released from the pits first. Being so early to check in at 4 or 6 o'clock meant I was out first. Generally, that's a good thing, but here less so. I'd rather have someone slightly quicker than me who I can follow around. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that anyone is catching up that wants to come through just for the moment. When I go to TeamSport tracks, different tracks, I often comment on slippery concrete, and the reason for that is Sheffield's concrete is particularly grippy. At Sheffield we have textured concrete, which is more grippy than this, which is polished concrete, which is what you'll generally find. So of course I have to get used to that slightly more slippery surface. The wood generally is about the same. Finally, a fast driver has caught up with me. I've got run wide, let them come up the inside, and I'm going to see if I can actually keep up. Obviously, so far I haven't straight lined, as I've explained in the regional video. Coming out of that very final hairpin, if you go straight to the finish line rather than cut back across, setting yourself up for turn 1, your lap time will be about 0.2 quicker, but your following lap will be a lot slower. I've not done that at all, I don't think, during this qualifying period so far. I might try it towards the end, if I remember. It's not something I'm used to having to do. I'd normally just concentrate on driving the line, and therefore trying to remember to do that was... I definitely had to keep telling myself that I needed to be doing it. So here I'm cutting over to the right, whereas if I went straight there, I'd save a couple of tenths. Throughout this session, you might get the odd glimpse of a driver in a red suit. You just saw him on the right hand side there. That's Dan. I convinced him to come down for this event too, and for reasons you'll find out in just a few laps time, I'm quite glad he came. So I'm now straight lining that lap. It's a 42.9. It was a good attempt. Not quite as quick as I'd gone in the earlier session. Obviously I'm in a different kart as well this time. Now, that big gap there, that shows how much time you lose on that following lap, having done a straight line to the end of your previous lap. So it's quite important to make sure that you've got the space, track space, to do that as well. And even without straight lining, I've still done another 42.9. Had I straight lined that, probably would have been a high 42.7, possibly a low 42.8. But again, it all comes down to reminding myself as I'm coming through there that I need to straight line it. I clearly forgot. I've straight lined that time and it's a 42.8. Wasn't quite as tidy as the previous lap. That would have been the one to do it on. Now at this point, I'm feeling quite good. I know our time's coming to an end, but only one person has passed me, and I'm still seeing Dan just behind me. But when I got off the track and looked at my app, I discovered I was down in 12th place. That's out of 13 drivers. The only person slower than me was Dan. As I said earlier, I'm very glad he chose to come. So that sets our grids for race 1. Race 1 then. We're going to start this one with a rolling start, just like we did for the regional finals. The staff here knew that a lot of us were visiting, practicing for regional finals, and so they wanted to give us the rolling start so that we knew what to expect. cross that line for the first time, that's when our time starts. But we just need to stay close together. I'm getting quite frustrated, not with kart 11, but with the kart in front of him, who's leaving a huge gap to the kart in front of them. We've all come to a stop because they've realised we're not actually closed up at all. Then we've been released, and he still doesn't go. As we come round this final corner, we need to keep an eye out on the flag lights. They stay yellow. They're going to send us round once more. But obviously everyone's being called out slightly, going up the ramp. People weren't quite paying the right amount of attention necessarily, I guess. We're going to have to do another slow lap though. I say slow, that was actually quite a quick yellow flag lap if you compare to the times that we did do on BIKC. But again, they're not being quite so stringent with the rules this evening, and I'm really getting frustrated with the kart ahead of 11. Still leaving a massive gap, but we have gone 2 greens this time around, and I've got a small look on the outside of kart 11 as he's gone straight up the inside of the kart in with the green suited driver, and I've gone around the outside to hold it for the inside coming into this section and have made up 1 place already. I'm feeling good about that. I'm in a different kart to my qualifying kart, and this one does feel just that little bit more with it, shall we say. Kart 11 is taking a look at kart 15 up the inside there. I've taken the run to go to the outside, taken the kart back, and that's up to 10th place for me. I'm all over the back of kart 11, I just need to try and find a way past. I'm clearly that little bit quicker than him now. He's run wide through that top section, but I was unable to capitalise on it. We're taking different lines through that bottom hairpin. Sometimes it's working out for him, most of the time it seems to be working out for me. As we've discussed, Coventry is a difficult track to overtake on. You really need to be a fair bit quicker than the kart in front. I do feel here that I'm quicker, but it's not quite enough to be able to do anything with it much. I took quite a big hit in the back there. Not quite sure why, but they decided they wanted to use me as their brakes or something there. we get a yellow flag for a spun kart in this final corner. It's probably gone for a move that's not quite worked out for him. Gains me up into 9th place though. We return to greens for the start of lap 8. But the red flags appear. From what I can see, there was an incident down at the double hairpins here, but it wasn't a very long one, and we're good to go. He looked over his shoulder, so I moved to the outside, hoping maybe I could carry some speed through there for a switchback possibly, as he was covering off the inside. It didn't work, but he's run wide out the top, and I've stuck it up the inside. He's not quite left the space, but I've made the move work, and that's through, up into 8th place. Now, there is a huge gap ahead of me, but the karts are just about in sight. I know what I need to do. I'm looking around trying to judge just how big the gap is. Maybe is it possible? Actually, I don't know how long I've got. Having a feel for time is not quite the same when you're driving a different track. I do it by number of laps roughly at Sheffield, because I know that they're roughly a minute long. We're bringing the pace nicely down. Obviously I'm not straight lining because we're now in a race, so I don't need to be straight lining. We're not going for lap time. So that 42.655 there will do very nicely. If I could do a couple of more of those, I might be able to close up this gap. Very close to being a new PB. That 42.465 was set straight lining it, so that technically was quicker. I'm definitely closing up to those karts as well. I'm judging using various reference points and I'm getting closer. I am concerned though that I am going to run out of time. Because not only do I need to catch them, I then need to find a way past. That's going to be the tricky part. However, I did manage to set a new PB across the line that time around at a 42.369. Glad to see that I'm able to keep that pace consistently, but it's going to be ruined this time as the red flags have come out. It's going to be for quite a while as somebody actually gets a swapped kart, so we'll skip ahead to when we go green again. So we go back to yellows, we'll go to green momentarily. There they are. So of course now my rhythm has been ruined. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to keep up the pace that I was doing before. However, I do notice that I did manage to close up to those karts. Now I stopped as soon as I saw the lights. I stopped slowly, controlled, safely. I don't just slam on the brakes. But I did obviously close up a fair bit of gap to those karts accidentally. Thankfully though, having something to chase has meant that I'm still straight back on the pace where I was before that red flag. And of course, there's always time to set yet another new PB, a 42.1. I'm really hoping to break it down just another 5/10 this evening. As we come up onto the final lap, I have really closed up that gap. If I had a few more laps, I'd have been right there in the fight, ready to try. Unfortunately, this is the final lap though. We come around the final corner and I'm disappointed to see that checkered flag being waved, but I do break under those 42-second laps at the same time. That was a fantastic little race, improving from 12th on the grid up to 8th place. I was more than happy with what I'd been able to achieve on a track that I was finding the overtaking so difficult on. Of course, we've got one more race to come, so let's jump ahead and see how that one goes. Of course, we're now going for a fixed grid for race 2, but we are a reverse of our final positions from race 1. So those karts that I'd already passed, I need to try and pass again. The lights go green, we get off to an okay start, 6th place, but it looks like we're going up into 5th within the first 10 seconds. Obviously all the very fast drivers are behind us, trying to make their way through the field. So we'll have to see how much of the slower ones I can get past first. As I receive quite a big hit going into the double hairpins. One of the things the marshal said described they were looking out for, particularly tonight, because they were obviously making sure we're all ready for BIKC, was something called loading, which is when you're in a queue of carts like that and you're all on the brakes, you all need to be braking ever so slightly earlier than each other, otherwise you start hitting into the back of each other, and that contact there is loading, which is exactly what that was. Somebody stuck their nose up the inside there. I wasn't overly happy with how they did it, but they're now through and someone else took the opportunity of me being pushed wide to follow through as well. We're back to our starting position of 6th. One of the slowest drivers has run wide coming out of the complex, and the 2 fast drivers are through. Again, I'm being pushed through the final corner. I'm not overly happy with the driving of some of these faster carts trying to find their way through. I was pushed once again. Again, I was coming to the left, but they were not there. So there was a little bit of a racing incident. I wasn't faultless. They were fully to blame. We were all sort of involved. Unfortunately, the cart in front took the grunt of it and went the most sideways. But they stayed ahead. This time I have got the run. I've gone up the inside. I'm still being pushed from the car behind. So I give them a big hand and see they're actually now receiving the black and white warning flag. So next for my target is that red suit of Dan. I'd already said, either let me through, I'm pushing you out of the way. We'll see what happens. He caught me out on the brakes there going mega early, or a lot harder than I needed to be, which was one thing, and then I decided, yeah, I'm just going to stick it straight up the inside here. I was mostly up the side. As I say though, I had warned him I was just going to push him out of the way. I saw that dive coming, there was nothing for me to do. That driver has a warning already. Obviously, one of the big differences with this event is we are mixed weight class. So some of the lightweight drivers, some of them are heavyweight drivers. I am, of course, middleweight drivers. Whereas when it came to the regional finals, it was purely middleweight drivers. As we cross the line though, we have set another new PB, chasing that car, trying to close up to the one in front of him. Certainly helped me out this time. I've had another pretty quick run and I've gone even quicker. I tried to take advantage of the other driver being forced a little bit wide from the overtake, but I wasn't able to get the run as another car dives up my inside. It's one of the BSR boys, and we get another one following through as well. That's 2 places in a matter of corners. We get a red flag though, so we have a momentary breather. I wasn't able to see what it was for, but we are back to yellows anyway. We'll just wait for those green lights and then we'll get going again. Kart 12 went to take a very late look up the inside of Kart 7 on there. Wasn't far enough alongside to make that work. Another driver made it up the inside of me through the final sweeping right-hander, and they were far enough alongside to maintain their position going up to the final hairpin as well. Drivers do seem to be taking their time getting past this Kart 7, and I think that's probably a good thing for me, as it's enabling me to just about keep up at the moment. The blue-suited driver had managed to find a way past Kart 7, possibly slightly lagging on that recovery out of that yellow flag. Whilst we did lose a driver into the pits there, you'll notice I didn't drop a place. The app didn't show me as dropping one, so I'm guessing they were a lap down anyway. Kart 12 went to go for a move up the inside of 7. 7 shut the door, rightfully so, and I've managed to get around the outside to get myself on the inside through the sweeping section. So it's my turn again to take another look at Kart 7. And again, that little bit quicker, it's just a case of, can I use that little bit of extra speed to find my way through? Kart 12 though is all over the back of me, so I also need to be conscious to not make mistakes, make sure I'm covering off any moves they try to make to come back through. Kart 7 went very defensive into the final corner. They know that their car is a little bit slow through that fast section, and they need to just be that little bit defensive. Once again, they're looking over their shoulder, covering off that inside line. They know that that's their weakest spot, but I left the door open and let Kart 12 come back through, but I kept the position ahead. I need to remember they are there and I need to try and concentrate. It's me having to defend slightly this time. They thought about a little move, but they didn't have enough speed to do anything with it. They did make contact with the back of me though, into the second turns. The yellow flags come out once again, but 7 still took their defensive line into that final corner. They hadn't spotted them. We return to green, so we're back on the pace. Last time this happened, 7 was a little bit slow to get back on the pace. This time, there's nothing I can do. They've once again had a little slide coming out of that final corner. They know they're slower up this ramp. I looked for the move, but haven't quite got the pace to make it work just yet. I'm still conscious of the car behind as well. If I attack too hard, I risk losing that place. Again, they're slower through that final corner, but I've actually just hit the back of them that time. They've got the run, no need to defend. Kart 12 hit the back of me. We'd all spaced ourselves back out as that went on. I took a little look up the inside there. That was never going to pay off, that gap. The way that gap was closing, it just wasn't going to work. So I backed out of that one quite sensibly. I've again tried a very late move on the brakes, but they are covering off that inside corner. That is my best opportunity, but they keep covering it off, so I can't quite get past at this stage. they don't need to go defensive. I checked, I don't need to go defensive. Though they are still hitting into the back of me, hence the hand waving a little bit there. I was a little bit slow coming out of that sweep and right hander, which is why I didn't quite get that run. The check over the shoulder, the wiggle in from me, just making it through the final turn all together once again. I get another big hit from behind as they use me as their brakes. This time though, they are shown the black and white warning flag. Hopefully, they'll back off a bit, give me space I need to try and pass this kart. I had a very slow change of direction through that double hairpin. Look at the gap he's pulled on me there. Not quite sure what I did differently, but something didn't work. I tried to dummy him into covering off the inside more than he needed to, as that is actually not the same kart now, sticking their nose up the inside. That was in fact Dan. Seven has slowed me up so much that Dan has managed to catch back up and is now the one right behind me. I imagine kart 12 either backed off after the warning or Dan managed to find a way through. Never did really find out. By the way though, we're on the final lap. If I can't get final run onto kart 7 out of this corner one more time, then it is over for me. And as you can see, unfortunately, it wasn't to be. Now something weird did happen. You saw there, I was in 8th place. I've counted the positions throughout this race to make sure. Yet somehow the app has us registered crossing the line in 8th place, but finishing in 9th place. Somebody got a penalty, but it wasn't me, so I don't quite know how that worked out. Either way, I'm happy enough. It's a shame I got stuck behind kart 7. It was the driver that I had difficulty getting past during race 1 as well, but that was enough, and it was a good enough practice for me, and I was quite happy with what I'd achieved. So as always, thank you so much for joining me on my go-karting adventures. If you have enjoyed this video from TeamSport Coventry, please do give it a thumbs up and leave any feedback down below in the comments. I'm always grateful for a good race like that. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed recently. The numbers have started to come to a little peak at around the 1200 mark, but I'm still happy as that is more, as I always say, than I ever planned to achieve. I will be organising my 1000 celebration soon. Until next time though, cheers.